There was people with kids out there.
Okay.
So I'm like telling him to turn because you don't know what's about to go in the bucket. Well, then I saw him moving. I'm like, oh, thank God. But his face was like, relax.
That's what my wife was like.
Question for you.
I was like,
too.
he's a white guy. He's black.
Yeah, well,
I saw
and
you.
then
I was in conference.
I talked to
call.
Nikki, who works in the department with me, and she had a radio on, so she could hear it, and that's when she heard that he passed away. She told me that it had passed
I did
away.
read Staple.
I was scared.
Okay, okay, all right, cool.
I made a copy.
Okay,
Thank you.
no problem.
Hi.
Uh-huh. You don't have to read it now.
All that. My stuff in the house. Everyone can see me.
Probably hear you too.
Yay.
There's something going on with the stadium.
I don't know.
I saw a bunch of cars over there.
I know tomorrow there's.
Do you want
soccer
to
game.
start with the
Yeah,
roll call?
practice.
Yeah.
That could be it.
Go ahead and start with roll call. So let's go through Atkins.
Here.
Beltner.
Here.
Fong.
Here.
Holy Cross. Here via Zoom. Johnson.
Yes.
Nicely here. Major.
Here.
And Phillips.
Here.
Awesome. So everybody is present.
You're fine. Not to hurt me.
Not one meeting, is it?
Anyone, we don't have a chairman, so anyone could lead. You can take turns and.
I'm just kidding.
I'm not the committee.
Amazing in charge.
I'll get my bearings and everything.
Well, the second item is committee members update. So if anyone has an update since the last meeting, you can share with your committee members. If not, you can move on to another item on the agenda.
Anybody have any updates?
We're moving right along. That's 2 of 4.
Sorry, I'll work together.
I can if you want to. So the third item on the agenda is selection of top 5 suggested initiatives and possible next steps. So on previous meeting, you all agreed that you would narrow down some of the initiatives to 5. So you would come up with a plan how to address those issues, kind of try to start like
I
taking
don't-
actions.
Think that we really narrowed it down to 5.
No.
No, that's what we need to do
It was
now.
planned for today.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
It's on today's
Yeah.
agenda.
I mean, when I look at B, I serve on that employment and challenges.
Sorry, can you speak
Can't
up a
hear
little
you.
bit?
I'm sorry. I'm looking at the initiatives that are on last meeting's minutes. And so it looks at B. Maybe we've already tabled it.
I can't hear.
But B is employee recruitment, hiring, and promotional procedures. I think that employment group could take B.
Can we turn her up? So-
Yeah.
It has to be her that turns up, I
Yeah, it
think.
is up.
Can't hear you.
The sound is up.
Is this better?
No, not much.
Okay, so.
So I think basically what she's saying is that
Not
B, employee recruitment, hiring and promotional procedures, that they can handle that in the employee or in the employment committee.
Yeah.
Is what she's saying. If we want to take that off of our, they can handle that there. But I see what,
Okay. That's probably a great idea.
Hi, Sonia.
Hi. Sorry, I had to finish dinner. Gotta love
So Stephanie, did you hear? They said it was okay. We can go ahead and move B to the employment committee.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you.
So down the line, I guess.
Remember, did we talk about the local election process last time?
Sorry, we can't hear you again.
Okay.
She's frozen now. I know G was a big thing we talked about.
Yes.
We have rambled off a lot of ideas. The social services, structure, programming, and outreach efforts.
Yeah, because we had talked about how West Milton Schools has that grant for social workers to be there 2.5 days a week.
I would say I, but I don't know what your guys' current diversity training looks like in Troy right now. I know the school we have a diversity training program at the school I'm in. I don't know what that looks like at Troy. I don't know if Stephanie or David could answer that. They don't have one.
So definitely,
Wow.
You mean for the employees or for the students?
both.
I would say both, but more importantly, the employees. Is there one for the employees?
The employees go through an online training. It addresses a lot of things, but that is one of the things that's addressed during the 3 times a year training that we have. As far as the students, to the best of my knowledge, there's nothing in place. Stephanie might be able to answer that better than I could, though.
Can you guys hear me? I don't know how to make
Yeah.
it
Barely.
louder. Okay. I mean, what goes on at the buildings is really dependent upon the staff and their actual, there's no district plan. There's no district curriculum or no district expectations that X, Y, and Z have to happen. So it really is contingent or dependent upon the people at the building and what they do.
Can we make that employees or staff and students instead of
City leaders,
yeah?
employees, yeah. So diversity training for all staff and students.
Yeah.
I'll make a comment real quick. I was trying to think through how we would attack this. And I was thinking that it would seem that we would need to do some preliminary research before we really took a deep dive on a lot of these issues, just to make sure that we're spending our resources and spending our time in the right direction. So I was wondering how everyone felt about a survey of students, of teachers, some sort of survey that would give us a really good understanding of what are some of the pain points that are currently happening, so that we can look at those and see if we need to add those to our list as well. You know, as a thought. I mean, I know we have a really good list to start on, but I was thinking that maybe we, you know, I don't want to miss something that could be really significant and necessary. So any thoughts on that?
A kind of a side note, a piece I'll add. If you recall, when we had our last large group HRC meeting, and I brought up that whole survey that's going to be done by all the students. I shouldn't say that. That will be done by students in grades 3 through 12 this coming year, whether we're at school or. Can you hear me?
No,
No.
you're very low. Sorry, I'm getting older and my hearing is
Yeah,
leaving.
mine is.
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
My face is it better now?
Little, not much.
Somewhat.
Okay. I'll try. Okay, the
Thank you.
survey that I mentioned at the large group meeting that the students are going to be involved in this year, that is the whole goal of that is that it will provide data to us as far as feelings of inclusivity, feelings of exclusivity, comfort, just engagement. So it should help us, and that can be broken down by race of student. So I mean, there's a piece in place that may actually give us some helpful information.
So when will that report be available?
That's a great question. I mean, the survey is going to be done in the month, I would say by the end of October, that should be ready because the survey will be done in mid-September through mid-October. I would imagine.
Who has the questions and stuff for the survey? Who's giving the questions? Who are the people that are setting up the questions?
It comes from a company. It's not anything locally designed. I mean, we could add questions. Like if our group comes up with questions, we could get those added. But the actual survey comes from a company. I don't know what it's called, but the survey is called a panorama survey.
Is there any way that we could see some of the questions or have an idea of what some of the questions are?
It's
like testing. On the testing, some of the things minority kids don't have a clue about.
Yeah.
So it could be the same thing with this survey.
Also, too, like surveys are so standard, and usually people don't tell the truth.
Exactly.
Or they don't have the language to even piece together what they're experiencing. So I'd like to stay away from that manufactured old school way of doing things unless we produce our own questionnaire that allows people to speak at their own level, their own way, so they can get out what they've experienced. I mean, I think surveys are kind of like the check the box thing now, not really let's get down to the meat and potatoes. That's great the school is doing that, but
and it's similar to this reading here. I think it's very stereotyped.
yeah.
Very. I don't know if any of you guys got the chance to read it.
I didn't get one, so I was.
Oh, you
What are you, Loretta? What are you referring to? Let me make sure.
You
She's
weren't
referring
here.
to the packet that Mark Barhorst gave us.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's very. I don't know, and I see the people that have done it.
So why don't we, because I see one of the options on here is to interview people regarding their perceptions, needs, goals, and ideas. So maybe that be one of our initiatives. Because I know that they said we could choose 5 to 10. That was initially each committee could choose 5 to 10 initiatives. So who says we have to choose all 10 right now? Maybe we can choose 5 to start out with, and then once we find out more information, then add those on as we go. But I think that L is perfect, like interviewing teachers, interviewing students. And there's perfect, we can go to Lincoln Center and interview them. You can go to, the rec center and interview them. It doesn't have to be at the school. It could be other places in the community that they're going to be at in their comfortable environment with people that they trust to tell the truth to.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I like that.
There's one other piece. I think that the Troy Foundation, they're also doing some surveys and some studies on these same topics. So I think there's going to be some overlap. So I think we should most likely speak with them just to see what they're doing as well, because I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
I emailed you the information about Troy Foundation's diversity, equity, inclusion.
Yes.
So Ms. Klebs, she was asking all of you if you want to participate and take the survey, the assessment. And then she also mentioned on a previous meeting when the results will be available, she will give it to you to review and kind of read what the assessment.
Nice. And that's from the community as a whole.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
100 people. I don't remember exactly, but they are.
Yeah.
I think they are choosing focus groups, and they'll be working with those people. But she also offered you to participate in it.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you all should have my email.
Yes.
And if you want to participate, you have to email her your name, and then she'll get back to you, and we'll tell you how to take the assessment.
So should we as a committee take that assessment?
I think
Are
it's
we all in?
individually.
We should, but I still do think there's that layer of finding a safe space that doesn't, you know what I mean? Like
Third party.
organizations and funders might be apt to answer the questions politically correct. I mean, it just is what it is.
Well, I'm sorry.
I think he was just saying that we could still do what we want to do, but also do
Oh
what
yeah,
they're
for
doing,
sure, to do both.
provide
Yeah.
context to what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we're not essentially doing the same thing.
Right.
Right.
If I remember correctly, they hired the third party, the company who does the survey. It's not Troy Foundation who. I think they have a company, and it should be in your emails. I don't remember
Yes,
it now.
yeah,
but
you sent
the
it.
company should be, the name of the company should be in the email to you.
So I think I'd appreciate if we could all take that survey just so we can understand what they're doing. And then we as a commission would know it may be very good. The way that it was explained to me is that their thoughts behind everything that's been happening in America is they would like to step in, find these problems, and try to find solutions. So I think they're in lockstep with what we are doing right now. So it may be good for us to understand exactly what that survey means and see if we, accept it, adopt it, or have other ideas that we need to focus on as well. So I'd like to make a motion that we all take it.
Yeah.
Second.
Approved.
All approved, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Can-
I'll have to look at your email and see when you sent that out.
Are we gonna add S? Is that gonna be one of the initiatives?
I'm sorry, add what?
S? We're picking 5 of these, correct?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess to get back to that, just so we kind of know what we're doing, like I said, should we just choose 5 now that we feel comfortable working
Yes.
on, and one of them being to go out and interview and talk to the kids and see what's needed, and then that way we can, at a later time, once we get more information, we can kind of go from there. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna choose 5 today, with one of them being definitely L, which is interviewing the students and getting their perspectives and needs and goals and ideas. So that's definitely one of them. We just need to choose 4 more.
Okay.
That we definitely want to do working on now.
I think U, S and U. I thought I heard, and I could be wrong, did somebody pick B, G, I, L?
I thought it was G's,
So-
I, and L.
Yeah, so far, we decided that B should go with employment committee instead. Maybe they can take that on.
Okay.
And then, yeah, so far we have G, I, L, and then you had mentioned S.
Yeah, and really, I'm thinking of S with U, that stadium work program. So maybe it's just U, and we move S to employment too. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be a good idea too. So employment for kids, saying move that to the employment committee too. Maybe that could be one of their
Yeah,
focus
that's
initiatives. I
definitely
mean,
under employment.
okay, so we'll move that to, and I'm on that committee as well.
And I think you is a real strong one that we could keep if you guys are open to that.
Did
So
we already tackle, the speaker, what is that, K?
Can't hear.
Teachers pay?
did you say
No.
K?
K.
Yeah, I think with that one we talked about,
Yeah, well,
I think that one we talked about like having assemblies or something in the school. But I think if we put that with diversity training for like the kids and the students and the staff, that could go with that. Like if somebody came in and did the training, that would kind of
Okay.
side with just having an assembly for them to watch. They could be more hands-on if they actually got diversity training. So far we have G, definitely we want to do the social services structures. I, diversity training for students and staff. L, interviews with the students. And then U, the education and the, yeah, oh, that was a lot.
Can we get a little bit more focused in on the education?
Yeah, and that's why with this one, for me, like I did these notes, so when I did this, I just kind of summarized everything, and this to me kind of was just everything we brainstormed. So yeah, we would definitely need to scale that
Are
down
we talking
to,
about the classes? I'm thinking like history, inclusiveness. I don't know how that plays in with the curriculum at Troy and that with the state level and federal level, because they do have to meet certain
Yeah.
criteria.
yeah.
I don't know.
King, will you speak louder? I'm sorry.
Oh, we're talking about you on the education. We're trying to find out specifically what we're talking about. And what I was referring to was history classes. And I don't know how much sway we're going to have in that due to curriculum on the state and federal level, just because we talked about, a more inclusive history that includes Black history, which is what's
Right. Okay. I think it's a twofold in there. There's the history academics, but then there's also the stadium school, the at-risk kids.
Mhm.
And looking at statistically, like what's the population? Are they
Success rate,
graduating?
job rate.
I'm sorry?
Success rate, job rate, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm. And location.
And then the ESL was a part of that too.
So we say
There's a lot going.
for the education, we want to focus on, you said the ESL kids?
Well,
Is that
there's
something you
the
wanted to-
stadium kids, the ESL kids, those are the diversity groups within
Yes,
the
okay.
overall system.
Stadium program, the ESL children, okay.
What does
Yeah.
the acronym ESL stand?
English second language.
Okay, thank you.
Since we're talking about groups, I know this, I think it's either the student government group or that painted those signs up at the high school on the fence, right?
Yeah.
I know that they were asking for some guidance and direction. I think that could be a possible opportunity to maybe have them come sit on the board with us and participate in something so that they, are making traction in their movement that they're trying to get going.
They'd probably be the first people we should interview.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you said what group are they from?
Troy High School, student government.
The student government,
Is
okay.
it student government, Troy Christian.
Yeah.
I believe they do.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think it would be great to invite both.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
we should stay inclusive and not
Yeah.
just make it a.
Yeah, I think that would be a great thing.
I know one topic that we talked about, but I don't see it on here, or maybe it's in the bullying versus actual racist acts. Like, and I don't know again how to, maybe it could be worded better, but a lot of things that are hate crimes are just being pushed under bullying. And so
Yeah.
maybe we need to figure out, you know, what the difference is, how the disciplinary, and also how it impacts the psyche of the culture of the school.
Yeah, while they're trying to get an education and
Yeah, exactly. Loretta made a good depiction, like when you're the only kid in class and they're talking about racial issues and history and things like that, and feeling alienated and unsupported and whatnot. So I think what I hear the majority of when I have kids come in, they're being bullied. And when we talk it through, some of it is just bullying, but a lot of it is like racist or socioeconomic class difference and
yes.
things like that. But they don't have the language to kind of steer themselves to advocate for that.
That's kids and teachers.
Yes. And maybe that could also fall under the diversity training. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I think it does need to be looked at. There was for a while, there was no cameras in the common area of all places in the high school. So
Right.
guess where everybody got in trouble? In the common area.
Right.
And guess where they could not prove that they were being slandered or hit or food thrown at because there wasn't a camera in the common area. So maybe we should look at things like that too.
Are you thinking that might fall under a little bit under I and L? Both of
Well,
that.
yeah, the diversity training. Yeah, we just need to figure out like what their policies are, how they are addressing it. So yeah, they could go under I and L, but I think it needs to be written out and not just swooped under, because we'll lose it if we don't.
We had moved I off of education list last week. So it's back on. So I had it and then I marked it out.
I think because we did talk about the diversity training because they don't have anything in place. So
Yeah.
changed it instead of saying to like city leaders and employees, diversity training for all staff and students.
Okay.
So under education, did we already mention, so not only the ESL students in the stadium program, and then, but we talked also, and I think we just said a little bit about it, but the percent of kids that are expelled by race, the percent of kids that detentions and things like that, we need that broken down by race. And we also need to know, the percentage of kids who are going to the JVS as opposed to have plans for college when they leave school, and divide that by race. So we can kind of see what are they being pushed towards, if that makes
Maybe
sense.
that's the last initiative, and then what I just talked about inadvertently comes out of that. When you get the numbers, you'll see that. So
Yeah.
then we can talk about, well, if this is the disciplinary, what is going on, and so maybe that's how we address it.
The other thing I would like to add to that list is how are kids evaluated to go into, I don't know what they call them here in Troy, but like the advanced classes.
AP classes,
Yeah.
advanced placement, yeah.
So there's so my kids have always been on that track, and I know the high school I went to in Cleveland, that wasn't accessible to everybody.
Right.
And there's a lot of my friends that were very gifted that never had an opportunity. So I would like to know how that's understood, how kids are being pushed into that program, how are they being tested, et cetera, because that's very important with making sure, because there's tons of people in Troy that send their kids to Troy because they're in all AP classes and they don't really mix with the general population. And
Right.
I've heard this on more than 3 occasions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how they will decide to go to Troy instead of going to Troy Christian.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know that just because I'm in that circle.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, also, do they still send kids through to the juvenile system? What does that look like? Because that is a really important rule, because I mean, I've done a lot of statistical reading and studies done about the long-term effects of sending kids to a juvenile system, because it introduces them to the crime at an early age, at an impressionable age, and that's really where they get, you know, their roots started in becoming involved in drug crime. And
Are you talking the school sends them?
yeah, I don't know if the schools send or if they participate in.
Oh, okay. So
I don't know. I know some schools do, but I don't know if Troy does. I'm not for sure on that.
I don't believe
Think
that's
they
the
do unless
case.
you-
I believe that all goes through the municipal court.
Yeah,
Yeah.
juvenile
Okay.
court actually.
Troy City Schools can't just send a kid to West Central. That has to go through.
Okay.
So they usually, the way that works is even when a child is on supervision, like probation, they can't go to jail until it's approved by a judge.
Mhm.
So like nobody can just send a kid to West
Right.
Central.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying. Yeah, once they're in there,
Right.
what's the percentage of kids that are in there and then coming back to school, and how are they?
Exactly.
But those kids in there, I mean, those are from all over. They're not just from Miami County. And there's, from what I learned, and I never knew this, there's like murders in that
Mhm.
jail. I mean, so
It's
we have
not
our
just-
kids mixing with higher risk individuals and then coming back into the school.
Exactly.
Yeah, we actually have the kid sex offenders at West Central.
Yeah.
They have like their own area.
Yeah.
All right, so can we go through the
So we need to,
items again, just that we have? So you said G, I, L, and U, right?
okay, so we have GIL
You.
and U, yes.
And then we added the stadium program
Well,
/ ESL, is that correct?
We're saying this, that's what we're kind of right now under education. That's what we're trying to figure out, what we're going to focus on under education. And that's what we said, that should be where we focus on the ESL students, focus on, so maybe we should change that from education to education system. Because I mean, we are the education committee, so it kind of is confusing. I think everybody
Yeah,
that we're, so education system, as I think what was
Yeah.
or programs, yeah. Well, I mean, something that's going to encompass, you know,
What that? Yeah.
I don't know what, you know, what else we could name it, but so something that would encompass everything that we're talking about that we're wanting to do in that specific area.
Program or system.
It'd be like an educational pathing, right?
Yeah, yes, and yeah, because I mean, we're kind of, yeah, we're basically wanting to know, you know,
Where these kids are going.
what's happening to these kids while they're in the school that's causing them or not causing them to go or not go a certain path.
Right.
We want to, that's why we're trying to break down who's getting the detentions, who's getting,
Maybe it's
How
access,
are they getting-
educational
they
access.
know about these other things as
Yeah.
opposed to these other kids. Like,
We also need to talk about the students, because I mean, human relations, that's very broad within itself, but also the kids that are involved in the special education, and also with an interventionist, and you know, they have that one-on-one interaction.
yes.
But also I've heard cases where students are not felt as inclusive, or teachers have made them feel dumb because they need extra assistance,
Mhm.
and teachers have expressed that they didn't want them in the class because they are a burden. And I've heard kids talk about that. I know it takes an emotional toll on them. So if that's something we can look into as well.
Yeah. I think the IEP is grouped under that U, but I'm with you on that.
Okay, so we're gonna name it educational pathway. Sorry, I'm gonna be taking the notes, so I need to know what we're gonna be doing.
I'm fine to call it whatever.
Okay.
I like that. I mean, it's relevant. It's access to educational programs, so pathways.
Okay, so educational pathways.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay. So just to be clear on what we want to address, ESL students, stadium program, Sorry, we're gonna
IEPs.
I know for sure what we're doing because we just keep throwing everything out here and it's just stadium program. Did we say that bullying versus actual racism, would that go into the into the diversity part? The training?
I think so, or like what you were talking about, getting all the stats.
Yeah.
And it's just going to come out. So maybe we leave 5 open for what we glean out of all the statistics.
Well, everything we're talking about right now is going to go under the educational pathways.
Okay.
So like ESL kids, stadium, and all of that. And well, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that maybe come into a whole nother issue that we need to address in itself. Okay.
Because I think the last thing, again, is like we want these kids to come back and be professionals, right, in our community. So I don't know, again, does that go to employment, or does that ultimately fall after we get all the numbers and like follow a kid's lifespan of why they're not? So
I personally think that might fall under employment. Something I was thinking is social media. I don't know if that would fall under one of these. Maybe under the training, social media might fall under, but you know, in the training, maybe what that looks like, because I know a lot of kids might post things that can be racist or bullying or threats, stuff like that. I don't know if that's something.
I think that's very relevant. Kane, remember, was it last year or the year before, somebody put their history assignment on social media and it was very controversial.
That was this year, I think.
Kid.
Yeah, that was the end of last year.
Yeah, that was a really big deal. So maybe that is very relevant to talk about social media. In all honesty, from the student to the professional, because there's some professionals that I'm blown back by. Keep your stuff private. Shut your mouth. You know what I mean? Like, so I think training goes both ways for that.
So is that something we want to focus on now too? Is social media, or would that go under the?
I'm thinking that might go under training.
Okay.
Hey guys, I'm racking my brain when we talk about the data. When we're talking about discipline, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me? Okay.
I can kind of hear you. Discipline, and we're talking
we have
about
to record
data.
that into a state. Yes. So when we record that disciplinary data, it has to go into a database that goes to the state. There is no category called racist.
Probably the problem.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem.
If I had a kid who called somebody, well, it all goes under harassment, insubordination, disrespect. I don't know. I mean, as I'm sitting here thinking, if we took let's start with the worst discipline, which would be an expulsion. So if we look at all the expulsions, our district would be able to glean which of those kids were, what race, ethnicity are they? And, we could maybe look at something, look into the details of each of those cases to figure out what was that case really about.
Yeah.
That's gonna take a review of all those different cases, which you and I are not gonna have access to.
Well, someone has to have access to those, right? I mean, if they don't,
they will grant us access to that.
if they don't put down the race of, we're going to have to ask. I mean, we'd have to first decide how far back we want to ask for these statistics from. But I mean, if they keep records of, I remember being in high school, you had to sign something every time and your name and everything was on it. So it would be someone having to go through and add up the research, and that's just something they're going to have to do, or we're going to have to do.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's not that it can't be done. It's just not a number, and it's not like schools aren't going to turn over those records to a group of people to look at, because that's privacy for those kids that are involved. So I can go through my own records, and each principal could do that to determine, was it a racially charged situation? What are the statistics of kids? I mean, I can figure that out, is what I'm saying. I'm just
shocked that they wouldn't already be trying to know that. Truthfully, like maybe that's the problem, that culture has not been addressed.
Well,
and your ideal of what may be a racial slur or not a racial slur would vary from what we would think.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Because you might think it's not a racial slur.
Yeah.
That is accurate.
That's culturally based.
Yeah, that's cultural, definitely,
Right.
culturally based. So,
And
we know
I
that
guess-
there are more of you than us, so I don't know how real it would be, the statistics would be.
and that's what I'm saying. There's nothing objective. The data that we have is very vague, so I don't know that data is going to provide us much, other than we could certainly look at the race and or gender, whatever, of the kid who is involved in that
Yeah.
situation.
So
But
in
as
my
far as what the-
experience, go ahead, Stephanie.
No, I was just going to say, I don't think we're going to be able to glean anything else that is the same across the board.
I think that's where we kind of pinpoint the disdain with the school and our kids, because that's what our kids say all the time. Like when my kid was called the N-word and something thrown at her, I mean, they got talked to. They didn't get expelled, suspended. I don't even know if they wrote the report in an accurate manner. So again, I think that's what our kids are talking about. Like, why are people getting slapped on the hand for something that's scarring my soul and creating this horrible? So maybe it's advocating it and maybe seeing if the school would be open to tracking moving forward these types of things. And then, you know, again, we're not going to know individually the discipline, but they can come up with a specific disciplinary action for that moving forward. That would be huge in the school to know those kids would know that they were actually supported when someone said something like that. And in turn, I mean, there's a reality that sometimes our kids say those things. And so they would have to be treated exactly the same.
Right.
And
No,
I think we would need to find an advocate that we could work with at a school so that we can figure out how to implement a policy, and then we would need to track it. I think we're going to have to go through the numbers. We're going to have to create a policy and find a school, find a principal that would be willing to actually take this on and say, we will do it. So we're going to have to do some reaching out.
I know we talked a little bit about state level and state statistics.
Mhm.
I do have connections with our
Okay.
State Board of Education for Ohio, so if we could bring them in maybe
Yes.
and talk about what they're doing and what data they have, and you know, any other questions we might have and what they could do.
Yep.
And finding data right now.
Yes, I think that's
Would be great.
So who is your contact, or do you want to call them and see how we can
Yeah,
weave through this?
yeah.
Okay.
Will we want that for this or the full?
Maybe for this, and then we can present a report for the full.
I think this would be good to present.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be wonderful to present. Thank you, Kane.
I mean, and also too, I mean, we can try to get these statistics, but I mean, at the end of the day, we can ask the kids too. I mean,
Yes.
I mean, if we're asking the kids, how many times have you been suspended? How many times have you been expelled? And so we're not just going to be asking the black and brown kids. We're asking the white
All
kids
the
too, because I want to
kids,
know
all the
from
kids.
them what's
Yeah.
happening with them too. So, you know, have you ever got a detention? Have you ever been expelled? You know, what kind of classes do you know about at the school? Do you know about the AP classes? And just see what their answers, how different their answers are going to be.
Are we gonna throw in gender biases as well in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that should
Absolutely,
definitely be something
yeah.
we should include. There's
Yeah.
a lot of isms,
Yes.
classism,
Mhm.
racism, sexism.
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely.
A lot of bullying.
Human
back too.
relations, we want to.
Mhm.
And
The
being
whole
free.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ken, your thought is to try to find statistics on race issues, right? Or were you thinking
I would-
the other items as well?
Yeah, I would say the other items as well.
Um,
So I think it is really important.
Yes.
Yeah. There are a lot of gender biases.
The one thing I will add back in is I didn't want to say that we can't produce anything for Troy, because like I said, we can definitely break it down by sex. We can break it down by gender. We can break it down by race. We just can't break it down by infraction because the infraction is way too vague.
I think that schools would have to track that by law. Can't
We do.
treat a kid a certain way and not document that, and not have a statistic on it. So those stats have to be somewhere. I don't think
Reports.
that they would be accessible to us.
Well, I think what she's saying is it's not labeled that. So you're gonna have
They
to,
haven't.
you're gonna have to
Do a lot of
literally
digging.
sift through. I mean, and that's something that somebody may have to do. If we're not keeping
Yeah.
track of that, then maybe that's
Right.
a hard lesson and why we should be.
I agree.
That's a big item for you to ask. So good luck. If I can help, I will.
Do you think maybe, so right now we just have the 4 initiatives. I'm right, G, I, L, and U?
Yeah.
Do you
That's
want?
a lot. And it's,
I was gonna say, it's a lot.
yeah.
I still think we should have some input in the education hiring part, maybe a small part, but
I think we're going to have to get back with Mark Borhorst and try and convince him, because his thought process was, well, we try to hire the right person. And, I get that. And I try to hire the right people at my company. But when you're dealing with children from different backgrounds, you have to find the right person for the right student.
Mhm.
exactly.
Group that
Student
you
body,
have.
right,
Yeah.
right. So I think that should be maybe number 5,
Okay.
that we still,
Work with him.
with
Yeah.
Stephanie and whoever's doing it,
Yeah,
work with them.
I'm
on
good at
things
hiring
that
more
we think-
diverse.
That we think are important.
so
Yeah.
was that on here already, like
B.
B? Okay, so kind of maybe instead of just broadening as employee recruitment, hiring, promotion procedures, put we have to, diversity hiring, or put like a diversity clause or something where we're actually specifically looking for certain types of teachers, not just, oh, we'll take the best people. We're not looking to specifically hire, minorities. We just want the best.
Right.
So maybe, so what would we call that?
I want them to also realize that the best might be in minority. That
Exactly.
actually might be a skill set that you can't learn in a school or at a college.
So student body employment.
I don't know what that'll impose on with the hiring laws. So that's the only wall we would run into.
Yeah.
He was saying that he uses something called Shake, and
Handshake.
yes, thank you. So I think that if he used that at maybe some historically Black colleges,
Exactly.
maybe he could find some of those candidates as well. He didn't mention it. He
No.
mentioned that,
Central, he took a class. That was his first time.
right. And so I think that if we could just talk to him and say, hey, let's look at some of these candidates, especially for history. So I think that's one of our issues me as an African American, my most difficult experiences in school was talking about the Civil War. And people just, I think that there's a certain group of kids that take it one way, there's a certain group of kids that take it another way. And there's a certain group of kids that get it are typically your Jewish kids, and then the other ones, they're like, whatever, But I think that we should at least talk with him and see what we can do to even talk with the history teachers at Troy, just about that subject itself, because it's not always, I think that if we could just fix one of those issues, I think we would go a long way in helping people, to feel more confident about themselves at school, and the skin that they're in.
Yeah.
Just my opinion.
Also, like teachers, when they tell you, you do a report, they give you a list, and there's hardly ever anybody on that list other than Martin Luther King, Let's see who's, oh, Rosa Parks.
Parks.
Never Malcolm X.
Never Malcolm
Malcolm
X.
X.
That's why I made
and
my
they don't
son
know
do
the
his
truth.
report on Malcolm X.
Right,
Yeah.
and there's
Never
so
Marcus
many
Garvey.
other,
Never
we have
Marcus.
so many Black people that are in science. I mean, they think it's sports, music.
Amen to that.
Yeah, that's all they know. And all the things that the talent we have.
You only learn
And we
about
never
the
learn about
passive people of our
Exactly.
history. You don't learn about
Exactly.
the ones who tried to go against the system.
Right,
They don't want you to know about those people.
right. And that really needs to, and it needs to start at elementary school,
Absolutely.
all the way up.
Well, and it's also an expansion in music too.
Mhm.
We lose diversity as soon as they get out of general music.
Yeah.
Because in general music, they learn about Native American or indigenous culture. It's a proper term. Indigenous culture. They learn about African culture. They learn about different cultures, but as soon as they get into a band, orchestra, or choir, it's all Western music, European music, white man's music is I guess a proper term, and it goes into the music history classes. So I mean,
All areas of learning.
exactly, yeah, and that comes down to a state level too. Everyone's trying to meet a state level in the music program as well, and it doesn't leave that room for music programs to expand into something more diverse, like an African drum circle. They can't, because then they're not meeting state level. They're not meeting the state requirements.
So can we all agree that that would be our fifth initiative? Okay. So we're going to do social services, diversity training, interviewing the students, our educational pathways, and then student body employment.
David, have your daughters experienced any of these issues during their time in school?
Not that they've ever mentioned.
Okay.
And you know, as far as the IEPs and that sort of thing, and this is anecdotal evidence, but I've had nothing but good experiences in terms of my son being included, whether it be socially or academically. But
Okay.
again, I can only speak for myself.
Okay.
But like I said, my son is on an IEP. My son is in special education classes, and he has specialists who go with him to his regular classes or his mainstream classes, and we've been absolutely thrilled, both at Haywood and at Van Cleve, with the experiences that we've had working with the special education and IEP programs.
Thanks.
So,
Yeah,
That's good to know. That really is good to know.
But I will say, you know, my son, he's not on an IEP plan, but from the time he was in kindergarten, they tried to convince me he had ADHD, and he's been tested and everything. So it was like every time we would come to a conference, it's, you know, what are you doing at home? What are you doing at, you know, what can we do? What can we do? And it was always like they had their hands tied. There was nothing more they could do for him, and he just needed too much attention. And you know, we have the whole class. We can't spend the whole time, you know, helping him, type of thing. So it is different, I think, for depending on who you ask. I mean,
Yeah.
and it was always, to me, every time I went in, I felt like I was a crappy parent. Like, am I supposed to be doing more at home? Like, you know, I thought you guys are the teachers. You're supposed to be giving me ideas on what to do with him at home. You know, I don't know how, you know, you guys were trained to do this. And so every time it was kind of like left on my plate, like, you need to figure out how he learns best at school and let us know.
Yeah, I just think there needs to be a prevention, a third party where people can go to, you know, talk about these things, or a kid can feel, you know, if someone says something or a parent hears about it, or something is said about a parent whose child might need extra help, you know, they need to have a place where they can say, oh, a teacher told me I didn't belong, or I was too much trouble. We just need to have that prevention there, because there are cases where it has happened.
Well, my son even told me just last year, I mean, they have, he was thankfully able to go to an after school like homework helper program that they had. And it was supposed to be a teacher there that would help him after school. And, you know, he said he was getting things done, but there were a few times where I'm like, you know, why didn't you get any of this done? He's like, well, I would raise my hand and she wouldn't even look at me. She wouldn't even call on me or anything. And I said, did you raise your hand or were you? No, Mom, I had my hand raised, and she just helped other kids and wouldn't even come to me. So it does happen. Like kids are not getting the help that they need. And I can attest to that because my son is one of those kids. But you do have certain ones, like he had excellent intervention teachers that were excellent. They wanted to help him. But then you had some that were just like, well, just let us know what you can tell us and then we'll do it. And so, it breaks my heart. That's why he does not like school. He does not like school for that very reason.
So I think that, you know, as a commission, our job is to help the people that we're serving to understand why these things are problems and what a possible solution would be to fix it. So as we look at our our goals, should we have a way for students, parents to submit their ideas, their thoughts, their troubles, so that we can help to, one, pair them with a solution, and then additionally just really understand what's happening. And I know we're going to get a lot of stuff that's out of scope, but the stuff that is in scope, you know, it may be way for us to try to guide some people to a happier place. And I think also having that layer there, I think that would allow parents and students to feel safer knowing that someone is going to get that information and they're going to see it and they're going to investigate it. And so that may be a way for us to really help out some people who don't know how to get help, because I had friends in high school, actually this is in junior high, that, you know, when I went over their house after school, they had like one piece of cheese in the fridge, and, you know, they had no food at all. And so maybe it's things like we pair kids up with just a place to get a meal, and maybe it's, you know, we pair them up with tutors, or we, you know, tell them about these after school programs, or it could be as serious as mom is not home and I don't have a dad and I have these other issues. But we at least have some way for these kids to say, I'm here, I have this issue, please help.
I think that could go in our social services.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I mean, if we could have a social worker, even in as little as the West Milton one is, 2.5 days a week, I mean, I think that would help tremendously.
I agree.
I think
agree.
The whole feeding kids thing too. I know that during the George Floyd speech we had at the church, one of our speakers talked about how that church fed them and was like a safe place for them after school, because their parents were at work all day and didn't have, you know, the resources to feed themselves and have that support system. So that's, you know, that is a big deal to a lot.
You can connect with the Food Insecurity Council for food issues.
Yes.
Because they're already up and running and they've done a tremendous job. Community food truck has popped up in a lot of neighborhoods. So yeah, food is being addressed for sure. But I do agree, like latchkey after school programs, if you're not in a club, then you don't have a place to go, or you're at the rec or at the center. But even that's limited.
Exactly.
So finding those kids that are slipping through. If I speak Spanish and there's no one to translate, I might not go to those entities unless there's someone there, you know, to connect me through. So I think that's very relevant. What I hear a lot of is, well, their parents don't care. I don't think it's the parents don't care. The parents are at work. So a lot of times when, again, like parent-teacher conferences is usually after your first shift job. Well, guess what? Poor people go to work second and third shift. So maybe like thinking outside of the box and having ways to connect the families with the school, that's just as relevant to the families as it is the school, because there is that disconnect of time and realizing, like, I didn't know that Maddie could start college in 7th grade. So she started in 8th grade. So it's just the communication. It doesn't matter how much you have in your pocket, it's your child's ability. And I think sometimes people assume they can't afford it or that's not for us. So it's just more communicating. I actually had to call the school today. We were waiting on a transcript since March. And when I asked why the transcript didn't go to college, they were really kind of shocked because it's not a kid that they thought was going to go to college, truthfully. But again, like, we got to make sure that all of these kids have the resources and support to get to that next step. And I think that's huge, making sure that those counselors are vetting everyone to be college ready. Like, don't wait and assume that their parent has to call or they have to say it. Let's assume that you're all going to college. Let's get you all ready, prepared. And then if you don't make that choice, that's not on the school, but you provided the access and the choice. That's all the school can do.
So I know I just added something to our list, but I really think that there needs to be some kind of online portal where these students and teachers, not teachers, but the students and parents can go to write down their issues.
I think that's, I'm sorry, I think that's the case for all of the committees.
Yes.
I think visibility right now is a huge problem, not just the entire group. My guess is if you were to ask people around Troy if this group even exists or what they know about it, we'd all be sad to hear the answers. I don't think we've done a very, and I don't know if that's our fault. I don't know if that's something that has to go through the city and the city's website, but I think visibility, and we're talking about these programs that would help kids. That's great. A way to get this information out to these people who need this help, whether it be counseling or food services or anything. If we don't have a way to do that, and my guess it would have to go through the city, then if nobody knows, then it doesn't do us any good to.
I mean, I know when we all got announced, it was all over. People were texting me, everything. So
yes, we did post that the commission was reestablished. It was on social media. And
right.
Yes.
So we're saying
every
we
time
could bring
we have
in
a meetings and
things.
even committee meetings, we send out the agendas to media. So we are reaching the different.
Right. No, I agree. I just don't know.
Also, when it comes to posting something, and people can already reach out to you. Your emails are on your webpage.
Oh, good.
So when you do the outreach and you'll be going out and serving people, you can tell them that they can send you emails. And then we also talked about creating one link where they can click and send email to every commission members. That's set it up for the council members too. So
I think that
you
would
can
be-
get
that would be really
they can click the link and fill out the form and comments, and it will go to every commission members.
Well, that's good.
That's good. I think that's a good idea.
And other committees, you also talked about compiling the list of organizations and resources. So you've been
Yes.
talking about how people do not know what resources are out there, and someone coming from a different country and not knowing. When I first came here, even now I don't know all the resources available to me.
Right.
Like I didn't know there were free ESL classes when I came to Cincinnati. I had no idea, but so someone, yes, and you have to know where to go and where to find the information. So if you compile the list and all the organization you think that it will be beneficial for community members to be aware of, like food banks or everything you think of. And if you compile the list, we can share that on social media. We can post it on, I have to ask, but probably won't be an issue to post it on your webpage, on city's website. I don't think that will be an issue. But first, you really have to compile the list of the resources which are out there, and then you think community members have to have an access to it.
Yeah.
I think I understand where David's coming from. Like, I don't think he's doubting the fact that if we get the information together and compile it, that people can have access. I think what he's talking about is his years of experience in the newspaper and in communication and realizing that there's a part of our demographic that does not believe in the infrastructure to even access the information. That's why partly we're sitting here all learning things, because it's not it's just not savvy. Like, people don't just get on the City of Troy website for information. They don't believe in it. They don't buy into it necessarily. So I think that's what he's trying to say, that there needs to be other places. And we talked about this in other meetings, links that access back to where the information originates, which we realize is the Troy website. We're just trying to make it relevant to all of our community members, because we realize, like, people will complain, but that doesn't mean they watch the city council meeting.
So what about
You know
making
what I mean?
flyers or something to put up at the Lincoln Center, to put up at the rec, to put up
the
at
laundromats
different
and
places where people are,
Library.
that we need to see it are going to see it, so that
Yeah.
they know, oh, wow, okay, this is how I can get a hold of these people. This is how I can put in my
Exactly.
opinion.
yeah, there needs to just be layers. So we're intentional that everybody has access, because in reality, like, I get it, it's technology, but if you don't buy into it, you don't buy into it, and you're still a part of the community who still needs to have access. So yeah, it's kind of like some people are visual learners, some people have to actually manually touch things. So I agree, it needs to be in more places so people can get to it.
It would be nice if we could create a flyer for each of the subcommittees and try and give that to people. I know that from an educational standpoint, the teachers can print off an item to give to the students.
Yeah.
The students can take that home and give to their parents. I think that's a good way just to get the buzz started.
Yeah.
And then hopefully they find our information. But I guess before we do that, we would need to have the ability to set up a small site. So I have a digital marketing department within my company. I will be happy to use them as a resource. Or if we have the ability through the city of Troy to create a mini site with our information on it, we could do that as well and just put the link.
It'd be good to start tracking our history through that as well.
Yes, so my goal is to get us all on that site. Salome, is there any way we can use the city's website to create a sub-site, or should I have it created?
I think that should be a discussion with the mayor and city,
Okay.
because there are some public meeting laws and some other things you have to. So every time you have a discussion, even like it related to HRC, those are all public records,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and those should be tracked, like text messages, emails, all this. So if it's possible to do it, probably it will be done through city website. But I'm not sure. It's not for me to answer the question. But that's how it is.
Yeah.
On the public. So
Yeah.
every time, so all the information we communicate has to go through our computers at work, and we have to keep it in the folders. So if there's a public information request, we have to be able to provide. And when we have a public records request, they can request text messages on the work with everything. So
Yeah.
Right.
I have another meeting to go to, so can we like, real fast?
There you go, Mr. Busy.
Okay, no, this is all stuff we could probably address. We have our 5 initiatives. So now the next one, we probably could dig deeper into each one. We need to figure out, start making some assignments of what we need to go out and do probably. Okay, but Salome mentioned we probably should try to come up with like a solid date and time, just because when she's trying to figure out with everybody between each committee and subcommittee, it's getting a little crazy.
Yeah.
And we know that not everybody's going to be able to come to everyone. So if we could try to come up with one day and time that works for everybody for this specific committee.
Thank you.
Sonia's like, please.
It's a
Me,
lot.
I can make anything work. Like right now in the evenings, I just have these committees. So if I can have like this day is for this one, then I'm good on the other days. I don't care. So I'll let you guys have obligations in the evenings to.
I just can't do Tuesdays after 7, and then Wednesdays I have a meeting at 8. But other than that,
Okay.
that's
So
okay.
Kane can't do
I'm
two.
fine to do these every other Monday at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, that's good with me.
That's
too.
me too.
Yeah.
I'm still working though. Hold on.
Stephanie's good.
You know, to meet every other Monday.
I will sometimes run into Board of Education meeting conflicts, but that's only once a month. And it may not even fall depending on how the every other week goes, but that's fine. At this point, I don't think there's going to be a perfect date where everyone agrees.
Yeah, that's what there's not gonna be a perfect
No.
one for everybody.
I have Board of Education meetings every the second Monday of every month, but so eventually that's going to be a conflict. But
What time is your meeting there?
5:30.
Oh,
I just got to stay away from Tuesday nights too. I have a development class.
But every other Monday would work for you, Sonia?
Yeah, definitely.
Then go ahead with that. That's fine.
So Monday.
So Monday,
I'm
so
trying to do it Wednesday. I don't want to schedule something over your meeting where you may not be able to attend.
I'm not gonna be able to do Wednesdays.
Can't do Wednesday.
he said his would only be
Jordan's
every
not
second
available on
Monday, so it may not
Wednesdays,
even
so
conflict. He said it may not even
Okay.
conflict. But he said it's every second Monday, David, that you have the board meeting.
second Monday of every month. So
Yeah, so
we'll
it
just make-
It
we'll
sometimes
make
it may, yeah.
Okay.
What-
we're
what if
not going to
we
find any one day of the week.
Wednesdays are good for me too.
Wednesdays aren't good for Jordan.
Yeah, not.
Oh, darn it.
Let's do Monday at 6.
So every other Monday at 6, okay.
My phone died. So what would be the date of the next meeting?
7th
7th of September.
September.
So the 7th is our next
Oh,
one.
that'll be,
Yes.
that's Labor Day, isn't
That's
it?
Labor Day.
Will we still be able to have it since the city building, will that be open?
We can barbecue at my house and get it
Sounds good.
I
You
Second.
officially rename it. No Labor Day.
I can smoke some chicken.
You can skip a meeting.
So did we decide the 14th or the 7th?
6.
Sorry,
6 p.m. on the 7th of September.
6 p.m. on the 7th?
Yes.
That's Labor
Okay.
Day, that's what I'm saying. Will the building even be open? I didn't think so.
It's not gonna be.
So
You
we
can
might
go
have
to
to find another
Partners and Hope. My 2 weeks, I'll be cleared. I
Okay.
wasn't trying to freak anybody out, so I figured I'd stay on Zoom for 2 weeks.
Okay, so we'll do
Do
September
Partners and Hope.
7th at 6 at Partners in Hope?
Yep.
Okay.
It won't be the first time I work on a holiday. They're like, what are you
Me
doing?
neither.
What's
7th at 6.
I won't be.
You're not coming.
No, I'm on picnic.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not zooming.
She said no.
No, not having Zoom.
No.
I may not be here for our meeting Wednesday. They might have us scout. I don't know how that's-
But you're the secretary.
I know, I've already reached out.
He's already got a replacement.
You're gonna call me.
Okay, so I think is that it? Okay. Thank you. Do I need to call it adjourned or?
Can I add one other thing?
Yeah.
I really.
Can't hear you, Marvin.
I'm thinking about my word placement.
Gotcha.
I really think that we need to bring Mark into our meeting.
Do you think we should bring him to the next meeting?
I think
Yeah.
we should invite him to our next.
Okay, okay. Mark was Bar Horse.
He's the
The education.
director.
Should we do the HR first and then maybe talk to Michael more when we get to the education curriculum components?
I'm not sure who Michael Moore is. Can you
He's
clarify?
in charge of the curriculum for the schools.
I think that
So if
would,
we're going to talk about Black history classes or any kind of curriculum, that would be Michael Moore too.
My question was going to be, Mark Barhorse deals with the employment, and I'm not saying obviously they couldn't come, but he might be like being invited to an employment group. So
Stephanie, do you think Michael would make more sense? Because we're talking about like classes and stuff like that.
I do.
Yeah. I mean, he's a stand-up guy too.
so my thought process is, I think that we were really trying to communicate to Mark that the school system and teachers should look like the city that it's serving.
Hmm.
I think that was my goal.
Yeah, because we added the number 5. Remember, we added the number 5 initiative to be student body employment. So one of those things was more diverse hiring processes. So like he
Okay.
was saying, like Mark mentioned, or he mentioned something that they use Handshake or something, and
Yep.
but they're not going to like
Yeah.
HBCUs to do it. He's going to certain colleges. Like, why are we not reaching out to historically Black colleges for?
Okay.
Yeah. Or is there education at JVS? Are we hiring back our own kids?
No.
Yeah. That makes sense though. And then maybe Michael comes when we get ready to talk about curriculum stuff.
Yeah. So,
And I'm fine to do that in whichever order you
Yeah.
feel is needed. So
I'm cool with
do we
that.
want him at, we want to just talk about that at the next meeting, inviting
let's
him?
talk about it.
Okay, so we can talk about that at the next meeting. Okay.
And then decide it would be a good idea to split those initiatives and assign to the specific committee members so you can already start working on
Yes,
those,
yes.
getting those resources together.
Yes, lots of resources.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Fun.
So I do have an items to put on your agenda for the next meeting.
She's got work for us too.
Oh, wow. One last thing. Has everyone been able to log on to the Google site that I created?
I never got any notification.
No? Okay. I
I'll have to try tonight. I haven't had a chance to try.
should have received last Thursday, like maybe 4:30. I sent out an invite. You should have received one on your email.
My
on
Google
your
email. See, I never checked that. That's why.
Yeah.
I've never gotten anything from Marvin.
Okay. Well, maybe I typed your email incorrectly. I will check.
I've
That
checked.
is so funny. I just want to call you Gabby. Because all I see is Gabby's name.
Gabby.
You want to ask them to go first if you want?
No, we're going to talk about that. So we're going to discuss that because we're going to talk about either having Mark or what was the other gentleman's name?
Michael Moore. I'm gonna read that tonight too, Loretta. I haven't had a chance to read that paper that you were talking about. I want to read that.
That pamphlet
paper,
thing? Or
that pamphlet that you
thing?
talked about.
I have enough for everybody, so I didn't even take one.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm gonna read that.
So few of them.
Yeah, he didn't give me one. He was right next to me.
Well, I don't think you had that many.
He
Yeah.
didn't.
so
Yeah, we were sharing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, if anybody gets a chance, can they scan it and send it out then? If it's not in our packets or anything?
I can
If
send it.
Because your reaction now, I'm like, I gotta read it.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I didn't even.
I will.
He
He didn't give it to us to take.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you, Salome.
Welcome.
I think I have some markings on it.
She's like, don't pay attention to that.
We good?
Yes, sir.
We good?
Thanks, everybody.
Return.
I second.
Good night,
All in
everybody.
favor?
Aye.
Good night. It's gonna be a lot of work.
Yes.
It's okay. Wow.
I'm